All right, well, welcome everybody to another Bay Trail Confidential. And I've given you guys a little time to answer that poll. I'll give you another, I don't know, 30 seconds, and then I'm going to end the poll and share the results. Our co-hosts, I'm sorry to say, are not allowed to vote in the polls. This is not something that has been, thought up by folks in Georgia or anything. It's just the way Zoom works. Disenfranchising, at least the powerful people get disenfranchised in this system. But welcome everybody. We've got a great show, and I'm going to go ahead and share my slides so we can get started with that. And then I am going to end the poll, and I'll share the results and tell you what you've told us. So yeah, this is great. We've got people from really all around the Bay Area and a few folks from elsewhere in California, but I like that. I like the idea that we're representing, we've got folks from around the Bay. That's one of the reasons why we want to continue doing this show on Zoom, even when the pandemic doesn't force us to, because it's a really great way to get people together. And then we asked you about some of the places you visited, and more than 50% of you have been to the Albany Bulb. Please, during the program, throw your thoughts in the chat based on your experience. We definitely want to hear what you guys have to say. And then I put a lot of East Bay places in the poll. And it's very interesting for me to see 40% of you have been to the Middle Harbor Shoreline Park in Oakland, because I hear from a lot of people that haven't gotten there. And I'll be talking, well, Ethel, my co-presenter, I think you said you haven't been there yet, right?
Yeah, never even heard of it.
So we are thinking of doing that in a future show, talking about that place. Asked about favorite Bay Trail activities, and I did not include running on that, and that's an oversight. That will be in the poll, I promise, next month. Hiking is the most popular, biking less popular. 3 times as many people hiking, it seems, than biking, and a few of you are doing water sports. And the Albany Bulb supports all of these things. And then I was wondering how many of you have taken your bike on BART, and not quite 50% of you have done that. So welcome. Let's go ahead and get started with this show. And we always like to, first of all, hold on a second. I got to get this poll out of my way. We always like to thank San Francisco City Guides for hosting us. Ethel and I are city guides, and it's great that this organization, we do walking tours of San Francisco. We're a nonprofit, and we're back in action. But if you were able to donate, it does help us keep the nonprofit going, and we really appreciate that. But we're not going to spend too much time talking about that. We just wanted to mention that we love the use of chat, and we will be monitoring chat. If you have questions, you have comments, please throw them in there, and we will try to read at least some of them and answer questions. And then at the end, I'm going to let you guys unmute, and you can ask all the questions you want in your own voice, or make comments on the things that we're talking about. And I also want to mention, I put this in the chat, we've got show notes about the things we're going to be talking about. Most importantly, we're going to be talking about a lot of really terrific websites, and the links to those websites are in that show notes page so that you can get to them. And this is just something about the Albany Bulb. It's inspired a whole bunch of really, really valuable, interesting websites. And there's even a podcast related to, or it's really a walking tour that you can access on Spotify and other streaming platforms. So we are joined. So I've got Ethel and Lee Huo, our regulars. How are you tonight, Ethel?
I'm great, and I'm really excited about tonight because, Rodney, I know you're not going to believe this, but the Bulb, I think, now moves up to my favorite place on the trail. It's kind of kicking Coyote Point, Coyote Hills, actually.
The Coyote Hills.
Coyote Hills was my favorite, but second place now.
I know, it's like having to choose a favorite child or something. Although, in the Bulb, we're going to talk about, the Bulb is so, there's no other place like it. The word unique is overused, but in this case, it's a perfect description. Lee Huo from the Bay Trail Project, how are you tonight?
I'm doing great, Rodney. I'm just going to be interested, and we should start counting how many times Ethel has a new favorite.
Yeah.
Okay, so excuse me, but in all fairness, I'm reminded of the thought that, where there's art, there's hope, right?
Well, and then in the Albany Bulb, there's a lot of hope, I think.
That's right.
And then we have two special guests. We're joined by Robin Lasser, who is a professor of art at San Jose State University, and John Winet. Am I saying that right, John? I got it. Okay, John Winet, who is also a professor of art at the University of Iowa, and you've been affiliated with a lot of different programs. And you told me you are a professor of, I'm gonna get this wrong. What kind of media?
Intermedia.
Intermedia. And we're going to be talking about music a little bit later on. That involves you. We want to show people what the program's going to be. We got a little bit of Bay Trail news to share, not too much. Then we're going to talk about the Albany Bulb. What a dump! Although I think I'm supposed to say what a dump. We'll
Right.
see. And then I'm going to talk a little bit more about my adventures circumnavigating the Bay and kind of an important lesson I learned that I want to share with you guys. We do have our photography contest coming up at the very end, and then we'll have plenty of time for Q&A in your comments. We do like to talk about everybody's Bay Trail cred. This is where various people have been on the Bay Trail, either on foot, on bike, or basically not in a car. And Ethel, you did add to your Bay Trail cred with the Albany Bulb in the
That's
past month.
exactly right. And I'm on foot, and finally on 2 feet.
Ethel's on 2 feet, no crutches or anything. And she wants to remind you all that I'm doing a lot of this on my bicycle, and she thinks that my miles should count like, I don't know, a fifth or something.
Exactly.
And then Lee, you've been all over the place, but you haven't really added to your Bay Trail cred since the last show, but that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, unfortunately not. The job keeps me pretty busy, so I'm in front of a computer screen more than I like.
That's not right, but and we go to all these places that you work on and tell you how much fun we have there. And this is probably one of the worst things about your job, right?
No, I love hearing about how much people enjoy the trail out there. It makes me feel good and keeps me energized, keeps me going.
Good. Well, we're going to keep doing that.
Well, let me interrupt for 1 minute. This was the first time Rodney and I were able to get out and go on the trail together. And I think we need to put a goal there for the three of us to go out and be walking together on.
I would love that.
Then you get to leave the office.
It was really fun exploring the Bulb with you. And especially because I know the Bulb. I've lived near the Bulb for 23 years. And I always just like to get the fresh eyes experience of a place. And we really got that when we did this together. John, our guest, you live in Albany, and this is your Bay Trail cred. You said this was a really interesting exercise to let us know about this.
Well, it was, and it just made me realize how much of the area I haven't explored. And in the spirit of full disclosure, I actually live in Berkeley, a small town right next to Albany.
Okay, well, we'll move your star down. Sorry about that. And yeah, well, we in this show we can really recommend a lot of great places around the Bay. That's kind of our goal, is to get people to explore areas of the Bay, not just where you live, but all over. Now, but you do have really great experience in Marin. I'm impressed by that.
Well,
And then these Oakland areas that you've been to, there's some really special places there.
and really the Marin San Francisco bit is mostly about a bike ride across the Golden Gate Bridge, which I found to be more harrowing than fun, but I'm really glad that I've done it.
Because I'm actually going to talk about that very thing a little bit later on. Good to keep that in mind, that it can be kind of harrowing for a number of reasons. So we'll want to hear your thoughts when we talk about that. I mentioned there's some updates. The main one I want to mention is something that Save the Bay is doing called the Bay Day Trail Challenge. And you can go on there, you can go register on their website. And basically they want to challenge us all to spend time in October exploring areas of the Bay and logging where we go. And I think they have a certain number of miles in mind. It might be they probably need to talk to you, Ethel, about walking miles versus biking miles, because I don't think they're actually specifying.
Well, so what they're asking people to do is two things actually. So you can either do 25 miles of the Bay Trail in any shape, form, combination, or just 5 different ways of exploring the Bay Trail for people who don't want to do the miles necessarily. But here's an incentive for people other than going out there and having a great experience on the Bay Trail, is that there are a bunch of when you do this and you enter, you are eligible for some prizes that they have. Their grand prize is a $300 gift certificate from REI.
Wow.
Wow.
And when you talk about 5 different ways of exploring the trail, John's going to tell us a little later on about one very novel way you can explore the Bay Trail on Saturday in the afternoon. So keep that in mind.
Oh, wow.
I did want to mention something happening on the Bay Trail tomorrow night. This would be another one of those 5 ways to enjoy the Bay Trail would be to watch the Dodgers lose on the Bay Trail tomorrow. And, I was thinking, like, comparing the Dodgers to the Giants, we have this ballpark that's on this beautiful body of water. And they also have a ballpark that is within a sea of parking lots. So they're both surrounded by interesting different kind of substances, I guess. But we'll be watching with rapt attention tomorrow night to see what happens with our historic rivalry. But let's start talking about the Albany Bulb. What a dump!
What a dump!
What a dump! So we're going to get some history from Robin of the Albany Bulb, and kind of we're going to really focus on art and music at the Albany Bulb. But first, we want to give you just an overview of where it is. So this is the Bay Bridge, and it is up just north of Berkeley, next to the Golden Gate Fields. It's just like a spit of land that goes out. And here's kind of a close-up of it. So this is actually a street that you can drive on, and then you can park. There's like a parking area here. And then these are trails. It's not really big, but it is just full of like amazing art. And we're going to be hearing about music going on there. And there's all kinds of activities. There's actually excellent birding kind of down here a little further at the start of it. Is a wonderful place, especially right now with the migration. There's all kinds of the pelicans are always doing really interesting things down there. There's a beach where people love to swim, and there's kite surfing, biking, hiking. But we're going to talk a lot about the art that's going on there, because I just think that's not something we see in very many other places on the Bay Trail in this way. Here's kind of what it looks like from the air. We have this wonderful aerial photograph from Michael Laevsky, who was kind enough to permit us to show this to you. And we'll see some more shots of his a little later on. This was basically a dump where all kinds of, it seems like a lot of building materials ended up there. You'll see a lot of brick, a lot of rebar, a lot of concrete. And then it's over the years, it stopped being a dump, I think in the early 1980s. And it's just kind of grew to be kind of wild. And I'm not going to tell you more than that, because I want Robin to tell us a lot more about that history. But these are the big takeaways that we came up with visiting it. That first of all, a tremendous amount of uncurated art. It's like all these people have gone there and just done whatever they wanted to do. Some of it is interestingly laid out, and there's even one that has a website associated with it that we're going to tell you about. It is much less manicured than any of the other Bay Trail parks. So this is not something where you've got your drinking fountains, and you've here's the ball field, and there's the little bike path. This is something much more organic. It does have bathrooms, but no drinking fountain. It has been embraced by a community group called Love the Bulb, and Susan Moffat is the head of that group. She wasn't able to join us tonight, but their website is just fabulous, and we're going to really want to point you to that because it's bringing together the whole art scene, the music scene, the events, and it's just really great to see a community driving how public space is being used. has frequent live events. We'll be hearing from John about one that's coming up this Saturday. And like I said before, it hosts a wide array of activities. So really interesting place. I should mention the dog walking too, because it does seem to be very popular with people and their dogs. We always like to talk about transportation, and it is unfortunately not well served by public transit. It's about a mile from the nearest bus stop and 2 miles from the nearest BART station. I don't think walking from the El Cerrito Plaza BART to the Albany Bulb would be, I think it would be a good experience, but that is a fairly long way to walk. And so most people who will be getting there will be doing so in a car or on a bike, probably. And we do want to mention that much of the art is in areas that people with mobility challenges could have problems with. So just want to, like, there is a paved section that you would be fine doing in a wheelchair or, other devices, but some of the places that the art is located, you're going to want to be a little careful. You might want to wear sturdy shoes when you go to the bulb. And I'm about to hand it over to you, Robin. This is your picture that you,
Indeed.
so tell me about this. Is it a drone picture that you did?
No, we did it the old-fashioned way by helicopter. This was in around 2013, and I was actually up in that helicopter with Susan Moffett, and the co-curator of the Soma Arts show that we developed around all of the arts from the Albany Bulb, Barbara Boisivan.
It's a great picture, and it also shows like this really interesting thing that juts out, that you can walk at low tide. So you might want to pay attention to what the tides are when you go. You can have a perfectly great time without going out here, but this is kind of an interesting. And I will also say, sturdy shoes and be real careful. It can be slippery on here. So I didn't tell you to do this, that anybody can do this and not get hurt, okay? I'll show a few pictures and then I'm gonna hand it over to you, Robin, but this is like one of the most iconic, there's tons of art on this bulb, but this is a sculpture, I believe, done by Osha Newman. And it's been there for a long time. So maybe Robin, you'll get into when it's been there for as long as I've been going there. And real interesting place. This is your picture, Robin, of it at night. And I think we're going to see a video that includes this in a little bit. That's really cool. And then here's Ethel and I. We went and I took this picture of her. And then she returned the favor and took a picture of me with is this another sculpture by Osha Newman? Or is it just inspired by it's a man that is also.
Yeah, I think it's Osha and his son-in-law created that piece.
That's nice. How many? I don't know of a lot of art by people in their sons and or daughters-in-law. That could be a whole category for art.
Did they also do the one where he's seated down? Do you know?
Yeah, the guy holding the stick and as his throne. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we'll just show this. This is a bench that Ethel just loved, this bench, and said this has to be in the slideshow. So it is.
I have to explain that because for a while there, we were looking for the best bench along the Bay Trail. And I think that's the best bench I've seen.
This is your nominee. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing and hand it over to Robin, and she's going to tell us some background of how this place came to be such a magnet for art creation.
All right. Thank you so much, Ethel, Rodney, Lee. And I'm very happy to see my colleague once again, John Winet, and he points out we haven't seen each other for 30 years. Of course, I was only 5 years old when I met him, just saying. All right, so let me get us in this direction. So again, I'm Robin Lasser, and I've been head of the photo department again for maybe way too long, about 25 years at San Jose State University. And just a teeny little background, as an artist, often exploring topics that have to do with either cultural, social, public health, or environmental justice issues. And the Albany Bulb for sure is one of them. And the Albany Bulb is one of my favorite places on the world. I've been walking its trails for over 30 years. And I came to this piece that we have produced called Refuge in Refuse a little bit by accident, and I'll share how I got there in a minute. I do have a couple other websites here. If you later after the show travel to Refuge in Refuse at Weebly.com, you can see many of the works that I can't share here with you tonight because I only have 10 minutes, but there's all kinds of arts from those who were otherwise unhoused living on that peninsula, arts of Susan Moffett and her students, which are also going to be shown here tonight, and others. And the other two dress tents, the other two URLs, dresstents.com and Migratory Cultures, are in a way related to this project. So I'm sharing the three of them with you here. All righty. So more than 60 friendly campers lived in this community with world-class views and significant art and architecture. Unfortunately, from my perspective, the residents eventually were all evicted. The landfill changed hands from the city of Albany to the California State Park System, but as one camper, Mama Bear, eloquently declared in an Albany Bulb Council meeting, "We already have a world-class park, no need to make a new one." And standing on the mansion that you see below, you can see the Golden Gate Bridge directly to the west, the Port of Oakland to the south, Richmond oil refineries due north, and Albany due east. The mudflats that form the base of the landfill migrated from the Sierra Nevada. It's residue from the gold rush when hydraulic gold mining unleashed sediment delivery from rivers to the San Francisco Bay. In 1963, on top of dreams of gold, a construction dump was born. And the human-made spit of land took shape, supporting rebar and cement slabs, along with marble from Richmond's demolished City Hall and the city of Berkeley's former library. I began filming at the Albany Bulb for the purpose of documenting some of the ingenious ways some of the residents created home. Although I'm a professor of art at San Jose State University, I live in Oakland. And for the past decade, I've created, along with collaborator Adrian Pau, nomadic wearable architecture that we call dress tents. So imagine a tall lady, maybe 15 or 20 feet high, and below her is a tent, which is a gathering space to consider the geopolitics of people and place. I wanted to explore how residents utilized upcycled and recycled fabrics in their tent creations. Eventually, though, I began to talk more deeply with some of the residents. What turned the tides for me was something that Stephanie Ringgold said. She said, living out here we're considered homeless, although we consider it our home. Her message hooked me, and I refocused my lens on a fiercely alternative group of people living creatively amongst ruins littered with art, architecture, and wild plants. This is a portrait of Boxer Bob. And I'm going to give you some of the things that he says, and these are excerpts from a full-length documentary that I created collaboratively with the residents who were living there at that time. And Bob says, "Building, yes, that is a fight too. to feel the way that Noah felt when he made the ark, bringing all the wood up here from the dumpster, doing stuff I had never been before, and then actually witnessing myself doing it. My biggest fear is becoming homeless, and that great motivation turned into the mansion. Of course, homelessness and poverty are one of the greatest issues we face here in the US. He says, it's crazy. Just to have my stuff outside was, oh my God, so embarrassing. I had so much stuff I had to cover it up. I needed a garage, boom. I needed a tool room, boom. And now that we're settled down, oh my God, we are living in a community, so we need a church, boom. When you settle in and look out at the view, you think, this place deserves a mansion. It is almost like the lifestyles of the rich and famous. When you are homeless, you are almost like dead. But in this place where I'm at now, I can actually feel myself breathing a little bit. The blacktop roof billows rhythmically in the late afternoon gust. Bob insists the house is breathing. He leaps onto the roof, boxing with the wind, giving it his best punch over and over again. This action reminds me of Don Quixote fighting the dragon. This 3D point cloud rendering of the front of Boxer Bob's mansion. We knew eventually, after the 3 years of working there together, that the eviction was inevitable. And thus we hired F3 and Associates to make very accurate 3D renderings of some of the structures on the landfill before they were eventually bulldozed and swept away. We wanted to ensure that the history of the homeless living on this landfill was not lost to history. And this is the back of Boxer Bob's landfill mansion, and it's facing the bay. This landfill sculpture is created by Osha Newman out of metal scraps buried in the landfill. Osha also served as a lawyer and represented they who would have otherwise been homeless on the landfill. Both residents and non-residents alike made unregulated art in this public space. The landfill library, created by Jimba the Hobo, resided on the northeast side of the landfill. You could go there to check out a book of your choice, utilizing the honor system for return. One filmmaker called this place Bum's Paradise. I've grown to think of it as home away from home. Amber Whitson, who was a 7-year Bulb resident, was also a social organizer for the community. And she says, home is called home for a reason. It is home base. It is where your heart and soul are. We put our blood, sweat, and tears into this piece of land we call home. My biggest dream is just to live out my days here in peace. I know I have lots of days left. I'm only 32, but I don't think it's unreasonable, especially because of all the work I've done out here for myself and the community and the amount of persecution I've gone through. They stole my son. They did all kinds of horrible stuff. They jailed me, put me in a mental institution for 24 years before the doctor wouldn't keep me there, saying, you don't belong here. You're not crazy. Here we're looking at some of Amber's collected treasures that she found in the landfill just outside of where she was living. And here Daniel Evans is living along with Boxer Bob. And these are her beautiful paintings of the life she imagines for herself in her home at the landfill. And what was interesting is so many of the residents themselves began to make art because I think they were influenced by Ocean Newman's work and Smith's work and all the work that springs up on the bulb. And this is the epilogue of the film. So you see Boxer Bob wandering along his mansion ruins, and this was on March 20th, 2014. here we have Boxer Bob and Daniel on their escape dock. You know, Boxer Bob was many things, and he would never give up. And he said, you know, I heard when you're out in the water that is owned by nobody, you know, we could no longer be evicted. So this is Danielle and he on the very last day of their stay there on the peninsula. And when we were there, Danielle and I made a whole series of signage that looks very close to the signage that you can see out there in the park. And this is a quote from Ocean Newman. If you go out onto a park, everything is planned, designed, landscape. Here, no one has designed it. So when you come out here, you are off leash. The dogs run around off leash. The art runs around off leash, and I run around off leash. I am on a leash too often. I like the off leash art, the off leash dogs, the off leash landscapes, and the off leash people. And this is what I think. How can I consider myself an environmentalist if I don't also take into consideration human justice? So I'm going to leave you with a 3-minute piece that you can even close your eyes at time and meditate with if you wish. And here we go. So I wanted to also thank Ben Hamilton, who also is a resident out in the island, and he created the sound works for that 3-minute piece
Yeah,
and presented it on the peninsula.
it's a really interesting, history to remember, and then to realize that the way the bulb is being used now, I think is really related to what happened there before, and that, it was like this community that created all this art, and they did, no one told them what to do, no one approved it, they just did it, and that's kind of what's continued in the community groups that are now engaging the bulb are doing more of that. So like this is a picture of the Love the Bulb group. I think they had a bulb fest where people got together, and there were tours of the bulb. We'll be hearing a little bit about the music that's being made in the bulb. This Love the Bulb organization actually has created kind of a prototype visitor's guide that has their idea about how they would like to see the bulb used in the kind of activities. And this is all available on their website, which we're going to be referring you to. And then the other thing, Susan Moffett is she's the founder of Love the Bulb, but she also works with students at UC Berkeley. I'm not going to remember her exact title. I should have that, but does anybody happen to know her title?
I think she's a professor, isn't she?
She is, and she's head of some institution at UC Berkeley that works with students to, they basically created this art walk that also was talking about the history of the location.
Yeah, it was a class, the Future Histories Lab.
So forgive us for not remembering the exact title of this, but this is one of the things that she has overseen, this Monument to Extraction website. And the extraction is basically the use of the bulb as a dump, as a place where we put what we think of as refuse. But she and her students created this tour that has 8 different sites, and the artworks relate to the history of the area. And one of the historic events that they were talking about was something I didn't know about. I think other people do, but it was the fact that the giant powder company who made dynamite in the 19th century, or started making it in the 19th century for use in excavating minerals in the Sierras, they had been located in San Francisco, and they had numerous locations with explosions and kind of terrible things happening. And so they moved to the East Bay, and where they were located was where the Golden Gate Fields racetrack is now. This was the giant powder company. And in, I think it was 1882, they had a mammoth explosion at this site, which killed 9 of their workers, most of whom were Chinese immigrants. It maimed many other of their workers. It blew out all the windows on the UC Berkeley campus, could be felt for 40 miles around. And I believe it was following this that the giant powder company moved to where Point Panola is now. But I didn't know this history, and it's like a really interesting way of, we have all this talk about immigration today, and the way these immigrants were exploited and treated, and many of them giving their lives, in this. So this artwork really is trying to get us to think about that, and then that story is told on the website that's related to it. There's also an audio tour that is part of this that you can stream from Spotify. So the links to all that are on our show notes. Here's another one of these 8 works that are out there. This is about a place called Cordonice's Village, which was a public housing in Albany that was racially integrated, and it was a lot of the workers for the Richmond shipyards during World War II. And there's actually a train that went from Albany to Richmond to take those workers. In the website tells the story of the integration of that neighborhood, which was something, there were a lot of people that resisted it. And then later on, when the shipyard started to shut down, the population became predominantly Black in Cordonisa's villages. In the city of Albany had it shut down, and it is actually the location where the University Village housing is today. So it's telling us this whole history of segregation, the racism, in the efforts to overcome that. This is another one that talks about, you can see the Chevron refinery in the distance. And so this student created this artwork that is getting us to think about that. And then that story is told on the website. This is one making us think about all the building materials that you find in the bulb. And you will see a lot of brick and a lot of other building material. And you always think, like, where did this come from? Whose house was this originally in? How did it end up there? So these are just some of the things you're going to run across. This is a bench that was created, and you're looking out at the West Oakland, Port of Oakland shipyards, and it makes us think about the whole history of container shipping and how that changed everything and cost a lot of longshoremen their jobs. So really interesting artworks there in this monument to extraction set of art. And then there's all kinds of, these are just some of the other sculpture. And Ethel, you probably want to chime in on some of this stuff that you and I walked around and were really struck by a lot of these things. So
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. And if you took the lower path, which is kind of, I like to say maybe the path less taken because it's a little more dangerous for walking, there's just so much artwork that's, maybe it's not necessarily connected to that project, but really incredible creativity that people have put forth.
yeah.
Look at this.
And yeah, this one has a tuba integrated into it. I think we'll be hearing maybe a little more about that. This was a work that Ethel and I really enjoyed talking about. It's called The Worry Tree, and it has little pieces of paper. You can take a piece of paper, there's some pens, and you can write whatever you're worried about and then stick them on this tree. And then this umbrella has some text that talks about how we should all be thinking about, well, it's basically about this history, this fake history of a worry tree, and how it was this ritualistic tree that we could use to deal with our worries. Of course, we have many worries today. And I think at the end it says we have a choice. We can either take someone else's worry, or we can keep our own. And
Right.
so far, everyone has kept their own. So I would highly recommend going to the Worry Tree. You'll see it when you find this white umbrella. Read the text of this thing, which is kind of a fun thing to do. And then you might want to put your worry on the tree. And I'll actually be honest, my worry was not about the San Francisco Giants facing the Dodgers tomorrow night. I'm not worried. We're gonna show them who's boss tomorrow night.
And the rest of the story there is we actually took some of the worries off the tree and read them. And to no great surprise, a lot of them were parents' worries about their kids growing up today. And then we finally decided that we didn't like either one of those two options of, taking somebody else's worry or keeping your own. So we came up with our own of, like, number 3 is just to cast your worries to the wind and be done with it, because it is what it is.
Or maybe create a Zoom program.
Yeah, there you go.
I think it was Love the Bulb that created or kind of oversaw the creation of these Black Lives Matter related pieces. And it's really cool. They're done on these concrete slabs, because there's a lot of these concrete slabs in the bulb. And they took them and did these really amazing, this is one of George Foster, of course, works. And just another way of expressing the feelings we all have about the racial injustice that we're seeing around us. And then here's some of these aerial photographs that I was talking about. Oh, and then now we want to talk about the music. This is something I just ran into. I was just biking by the Bulb about a month ago, I guess, and I saw this group of people, and then there were these classical musicians, the Del Sol Quartet. I guess I call them classical, although it's considered new music. And it was really interesting to stop and listen to them. This is something that I believe Love the Bulb was part of promoting. Here's one of your pictures, John, of someone performing at the Bulb. And John, this is probably a good time to have you start telling us about the music that you are promoting and using the Bulb as a venue for.
Great, thank you. So, well, there we go. Why don't we stick with this slide for a little bit? Thank you so much for having me. And this is a great opportunity for us. And I've known about your project, you all, for well over 3 days. So I'm deeply experienced in Bay Trails, but where have I been all my life? This is such a terrific project. And I think it represents the best aspirations of people who care about the Bay Area and care about its arts and culture. I'll get to the music soon, I promise, but it occurred to, I thought about the pre-Socratic philosopher Heraclitus, who is the patron saint of intermedia, who said some 4,000 years ago or so, that the only constant is change. And as much as the Bulb has changed, it also remains the same. But I was really touched, Robin, by your presentation and realizing, because I have also experienced the Bulb over decades, that realized what a terrible loss it was, not only to the residents of the Bulb, but to all of us in their exemplary expression. And I have to say, when I see temporary homeless encampments along the freeway, I know that some of those people are people that once upon a time lived out at the Bulb and had a life with more dignity and more creative passion. So, and somehow the Bulb continues to exist. So the other thing I wanted to say is, I think it's miraculous. So for those of you who've never been, I hope you'll get out there. It is, I think, unique to the Bay shoreline, of the Bay shore. And also the only thing I can think of that it compares with is the High Line in New York, which is a completely different project, but it has the same sort of, how did they do this? How can this continue to exist? And I recommend it highly as well, but I think the Bulb is constantly changing, and I think it's incredibly fragile. And I think that becomes a big part of sort of why we should be the best stewards of it we can. So in this photograph, you're seeing Sarah Cahill, one of the Bay Area's most established pianists and cultural animators, journalists. She's the DJ of Revolutions Per Minute, a show on KALW, another cherished part of our culture. Just to tell you a little bit, the lead up to the concert, which Rodney is not next Saturday, it's on October 23rd. Don't go to the Bulb on Saturday unless you're walking your dog or touring the art. But a week from that at 2 p.m. at the Bulb, you can see the Christopher Lowell Clark Quartet.
It's hard for me to judge time after tomorrow night.
I feel your pain. I feel you, as my students would say. Alternating Currents, the project that I co-curate and co-direct with Deborah Lynn Pugh, it's a few months younger than the pandemic, but it really grew out of a sense that there needed to be a safe place for musicians and for audiences and for performers to exhibit their work. So this was the first of 6 events we've done. We tend to walk on the wild side, as well one should at the Bulb. So I would characterize the work of Alternating Currents as being experimental and avant-garde. And we're now realized in the last few shows that it's not about come to see our show, it's come take a walk at this extraordinary place, bring your dog and experience a free, terrific concert. So I think I'm going to share my screen. I think I need Rodney, you to stop sharing.
Yep. Here we go.
And if I haven't yet, I just want to thank all of you, including the people in the audience, for having me and for being part of this great event.
And the link for the website for Alternating Currents is among the ones that you'll find on the show notes.
And actually, just so I don't forget, I will also put it in the chat notes. So if everything worked the way it should have, are you all now looking at the Alternating Currents website?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wonderful. So see right here, October 23, 2 p.m. It's free to the first 10,000. Actually, that's a joke. We expect about 30 to 100 people. It's free. Again, it's the 6th event we've done. I think I've already described sort of our raison d'etre, the reason that we started the program. But second valve slide, the Christopher Lowell Clark Quartet, is the first straight ahead modal jazz concert we've done. Christopher performed in a High Tide Bulb Chorale concert led by Randy Porter about a month ago, a little bit over that. But I'm not going to take you through the website, but I encourage you to visit it. If you click on shows, you can see all 6 shows. In a little bit, I'll show some documentation. If you can sort of look through the purple window with the text on it, you can see the place. It's called the amphitheater, and that's tended to be where we've staged our events, although the one with Sarah Cook, which I'm sorry, with Sarah Cahill, which I should have mentioned, is on a different part of the bulb, and it was called Spin It Farewell, and it was about saying goodbye to oops, sorry.
A quick question, John.
Sure, please.
Is the amphitheater, is that the place that has that sculpture with the tuba in it?
It is, and that tuba was actually left by Randy Porter, who's a music educator in the Oakland Unified School District. It was a $500 tuba that would have cost $3,000 to repair, but he left it there, and people so far have just enjoyed it being there. Which
Is it playable?
He played it through PCP tube, and it was absolutely extraordinary. And if you visit our site, you can actually see an example of his playing.
Wow.
His thing was called High Tide Bulb Chorale, and they actually played bulb kelp.
Bulb kelp
was one of the instruments. So now
Wow.
now I just want to show this off, but I wasn't prepared to do this, so I think I won't. I really hope that you'll visit the site on your own.
And you had some music for us, right?
I do have some music for you, and I just wanted to show, this is a shot of the concert. There really were 80 people here, I promise, but we are hardcore about social distancing and making sure that people are 6 feet apart or in pods that are 6 feet apart. But this is the stage. There's that tuba that you can see. Usually our concerts run about 40 minutes, and then there's usually about 30 minutes of musicians reuniting with people. But to a person, they've almost all said, this is so great. I haven't performed in however long it's been, since March of 2020. And it allows everyone to perform safely. I'll just show you a sample. This was the first concert, and part of the amazing thing about this was moving a spinet piano 1/3 of a mile on rocky shore. We actually had
That must have been hard.
a piano tuner came and tuned it. We thought it was going to be the end of the spinet. We were going to leave it there for people to turn into artworks, but someone appeared and said that they would actually like it. So in a space of 24 hours, even less, 18 hours, we moved a spinet on and off the bulb. So I'm going to just show you about a minute of this, and then I'm going to highlight the Christopher Clark, Lowell Clark Quartet. So. So that's just a snippet of Mamori Fujieta's Pattern of Plants, a composer that writes music with specific plants in mind. So coming up is the quartet. So it's led by Mr. Clark, and he has 3 incredibly accomplished musicians joining him. And they played with everyone from Pharoah Sanders to members of the Grateful Dead, Miles Davis, and some locals. It's awesome. And if you visit our website, you can click on the invitation through Eventbrite. So I won't click on that, but it'll take you there. And that's not required, but it helps us keep track of how many people to expect. This has been a joy. I'm going to look at my notes for a minute to make sure I didn't miss anything critical.
Yeah, we
I think I've done a
probably,
pretty good job. So here, let's just join this for 2 minutes. And I think that'll take us to the hour.
it will, but we have more to cover.
Oh, okay. Well, then we'll just listen to
Just a little bit, yeah.
30 seconds.
Okay. Well,
And if I could just say, seeing this anywhere would be, and for free no less, would be an incredible opportunity, but seeing it at the Bulb will just enhance the experience greatly. Thank you so much. I hope I didn't run over too far.
No, we're
I'm a
good.
college professor.
We're good, and got some of these other pictures of yours in relating to your stuff. So definitely go to that Alternating Currents website. I've already registered. I'm unless it conflicts with a Giants league championship series game, I'm planning to be there. I think the big takeaway from this whole segment is go check out these websites. They're all really, really worthwhile and interesting. John's Alternating Currents is going to tell you all about the music that he's hosting there. There's other music that is going on there as well, and Love the Bulb will tell you about more of that Monument to Extraction art tour, and then Refuge and Refuse, which includes, I believe there's a link to Robin's film there. So if you go to my show notes page, there's links to all that. Here's another one of those great pictures from Michael Laevsky, aerial shots. We're not gonna really go into this. I was going to talk a little more about my trip around the Bay. And I will just say, it was basically going to put my cards on the table and tell you I had such a great time doing this ride, but I had another group that I was trying to that also did it, following my instructions, that did not have the best time, and I think they had a hard time with some of the gaps in the trail. They didn't really understand that the trail did not go entirely around the bay, that I was putting them on just regular roads, mostly that had good shoulders. I'd come up with this safety map that gave people a sense of like what the places were, like this area up here in yellow and red. These are some of the more less safe roads, more challenging roads. So I just want to make sure people have their eyes open. I intend to do more rides around the bay, and I might even try to put a group together that some of you could join to do it. But this is something for really experienced cyclists. But we do want to say there are some really safe segments of the Bay Trail in public transit, because you guys know I use public transit to get to and from the start and end points. And the classic one is the one you mentioned, John. You mentioned biking across the Golden Gate Bridge, and we have tons of tourists that go from either North Beach or the ferry building, bike across the bridge and then take the Sausalito ferry back. But there's plenty of other less well-known rides that you can do in that same way. There's other public transit. So I'm going to work on putting together some rides that you can do point to point and take advantage of transit, such as the amazing SMART train in Marin County, some of the buses that go across the bridge, of course, BART, that kind of thing. But most really wanted to get to our photography contest, because we had a total of 2 people who the theme was general, but they took it to mean they could submit anything they wanted, which is actually what it meant. So basically I had 2 entries. This is entry, do I have the letter on here? Yeah, entry A and entry B. And so the great news for these photographers is that they have a 50% chance of winning. And I want you guys to vote on which of these 2 images you like the most. And sadly, those of us who are co-hosts are not going to be allowed to vote in the contest. We used to actually get to pick the photos that were in the contest. I'm going to gotta get this thing out of my way, go back to the meeting. I want to show you the other pictures. I want to show you the pictures again, but I'm having a little trouble. Let's see. Having a Zoom moment here, folks. But keep looking. So if you've already voted, I'm trying to give you a chance to, why won't this let me go back? Here we go. There's A. Here's B. And I'm closing the contest in 10 seconds. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3,
Come on,
2,
B.
1. So actually A is the winner. And that photograph of A, you'll be happy to know, Ethel, was your second favorite place on the Bay Trail. It was taken in Coyote Hills Regional Park.
Okay.
Not in the Bulb. And in this, I'm not sure where this place is. I'm going to guess it's in the East Bay. I don't know where that is. I'm sure they told me. I personally, I like B a lot, but I'm happy for the winner of A, and do not have the name at my fingertip. So we only had 2 entries in this month's contest, and I'm going to try to get more publicity about this thing, because you win a fabulous set of Bay Trail map cards, which is delivered to you by Serena Seaton of the Bay Trail Project, who's she wanted me to tell you about a place, but I neglected to do that in the slides. But our theme in November is going to be people. Yeah.
Did Rodney freeze?
Am I still here? Can you hear me? Hello? Yeah. So our theme in November is going to be people on the Bay Trail. So we want photos of people on the Bay Trail used with their permission. So please make sure you get their permission before you submit this. And the deadline is going to be November the 3rd, which is going to be, I think it's like game 7 of the World Series, if it goes 7. Want to thank the folks who submitted photographs, some of whom are on the call today. So Patricia Chang, Robin Lasser, Michael Layevsky. We've got those great websites. Susan Moffett, who couldn't join us. Ethel and I both took pictures. We didn't put our names on any of them, but Ethel, thank you you did a great job. And John Winet. And now we are going to, as we always do, have our rendition of Happy Trails.
I don't know if other people are experiencing this, but I can't hear it.
Really? Oh, really?
Yeah, me too. I was just going to type to you. I don't hear it.
You are not hearing it, huh?
No, I thought maybe it was my internet, but thanks, Lee.
I thought it was a synesthesia moment where the music was turning into.
Well, you know who could hear it was me. I know what I did. Hold on. It's another Zoom moment. It's a kind of classic, right?
I thought I was going to have to sing.
Hey, hold on. So I was really enjoying it. I was really enjoying it because it was because I didn't share my sound. I could hear it, but no one else could.
There we go.
There we go.
Happy trails to you until we meet again. Happy trails to you. Keep smiling until then. Who cares about the clouds if we're together? Just sing a song and bring the sunny weather. Happy trails to you until we meet again. Until we meet again.
I
All
love
right. Well, and I just want to say thank you to our fabulous guests. And tell you guys we got another show coming up next month. We also are going to be changing the date from our regular date so we don't conflict with any possible Giants World Series game. I hope I don't sound overconfident here. And you can register on our website, Bay Trail Confidential. Always want to say special thank you to my wife, Sarah, who's always extremely helpful. She went on numerous visits to the bulb with me and gave me lots of input on this. Jason, who sings Happy Trails, and La Estudiandina, who did our music for our slideshow at the beginning, and everybody whose efforts have given us the Bay Trail, the Ridge Trail, the Water Trail, and other great public spaces, which is, to me, one of the most important features of our fabulous Bay, maybe even better than the Giants, right? No, I shouldn't say that. Up there, equal with the Giants. So what we typically do is we let people share their experiences. So you guys are welcome to raise your hand and get my attention. I will allow you to unmute yourselves. Paco, I see you would like to chime in and either ask a question or make a statement. Paco, what are your thoughts?
Oh, it was so fascinating. Like all of the hiking trails. Albany Bulb.
Albany Bulb. So you're going to get there, Paco, you think?
Oh, I haven't been there too.
I mean, a great time to go would be a week from Saturday, not this Saturday, but an actual week from Saturday on the 23rd for this jazz. And I like I said, I have registered. I am looking forward to it. So thanks, Paco. I see Taria has raised her hand. Go ahead, Taria.
Yeah, thanks, Rodney. I've enjoyed many of these shows where you talk to people in the community. You were up there in Richmond in one of the Black areas, and that was so fantastic. And there was a lot of different people of color. Tonight, we've seen people of, who were unhoused or homeless, but had a magnificent culture. And so I just have said this on and off. Bay Trails brings people together and fosters community among this group and intersectionally with many other groups. And I just wanted to thank you and the presenters for this great experience.
Thanks, Taria. That really warms my heart to hear you say that, because that's probably the biggest thing I've learned from the Bay Trail is, like, this is public space that we all own together, and it brings us all together. And that's so special. It can help us overcome so many of our problems. And you're right, talking like we had folks from the Rich City Rides organization in Richmond. By the way, there was a picture of them. Maybe I should go find it again. There is a picture of them at the Albany Bulb in the deck that we're sharing with you guys. But that's it. This is such a special place for that reason. And then the Albany Bulb in particular is all these people creating art. I mean, we talked about some of them, but there probably are hundreds of people who have created artworks in the bulb. That's me talking, though. Other thoughts on that? Ethel, Lee, John, Robin, feel free to chime in.
Oh, you know, I saw a piece on YouTube the other night. Where do you go when it rains? Has anybody seen that? It was about the residents of the bulb before they were invited to leave. Robin, were you involved with any of that filming?
Which filming? You mean the
It was-
people talked about on YouTube?
Yeah,
when
it
it
was
rains?
entitled "Where Do You Go When It Rains?"
Yeah, that film and Bum's Paradise was also included in the exhibition we put together at Soma Arts, and it's at refugeinrefuse.com. Yeah, that was the second film, as I understand it, the second documentary and it's extraordinary.
Yeah.
And it's made by one of the residents, former residents.
Yeah, you really got a feeling of who the residents were. When
Absolutely.
you listened to that. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's a stunning work. Yeah.
I have a comment here from Chris Shuttleworth, who he's having trouble unmuting, and I'm not sure why that is, but he wanted me to share that the bulb also has a wonderful dog beach. And it is a place where you see just lots of dogs having a great time. The only thing, there is an area that has a sensitive bird habitat kind of on the north side. So the beach is on the south side. And there's fencing up. So it's just want to make sure people keep the dogs out of the fenced area, because I think there's some burrowing owls and other birds that need to be protected there. Always balancing these different uses of the Bay Trail, right?
Right.
And actually, Rodney, it's interesting that habitat was a trade-off. The burrowing owl trade-off was a trade-off for the soccer fields that were built on the south side of the racetrack. So there was some bargaining and exchanging going on that freed up that land.
Oh, wow, that's interesting. There's been a lot of debate about how this land gets used, and there's going to continue to be. I think if it's to continue to have its kind of, as I said, organic character, that's going to need to be fought for.
I think when we were planning this particular show, I was telling Rodney about how many different groups have interest in this area, and to me, people might call it controversy, but to me, what it shows is how much of a special place the Albany Bulb really is, that so many different groups have an interest in it and want to have some space for them there.
Yeah. And I'm a big believer in we all need to find solutions where we can get along. And the classic one is being a cyclist, and Ethel, my good friend Ethel, she being much more of a hiker. There is conflict between cyclists and hikers. We've talked about it before on the show, and I feel like the best way to resolve them is to really try to be as considerate as possible. Folks, I'm really trying, when I pass people, I try to do so in the most polite way I can think of. And I probably need some more suggestions, like, when do you ring your bell? Where do you ring your bell? That kind of thing. But we all need to find ways to share the space because it belongs to everybody. Barbara wanted me to point out that parking time limits have been enforced lately. So we didn't really tell you that there is limited parking. I don't think it's a problem on weekdays, says the guy who's retired, but I think on weekends it does get parked up, and it can be kind of hard to find that parking spot. So that's good information. Other folks out there.
Get there early on the 23rd.
And
Well,
when the ponies are running at Golden Gate Fields, everything gets more complicated, but you might end up having to pay a few dollars for a parking spot inside this enormous parking area they have, but
Gotcha.
So that's like kind of that could sort of be a parking lot for the Bulb if you're willing
on
to pay some
days,
money.
on race days.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I know not everybody bikes like I do, but when I go to the show on the 23rd, I'm going to go on my bike. So there'll be one more parking spot for everybody else. See, Jamie has a raised hand. Go ahead, Jamie.
Yeah, thank you. It's Jaime.
Jaime.
Thank you. This was a great show. I'm a biker and a runner. I live in the Marina Bay area of Richmond. I go to the Bulb often. I wanted to chime in and take the opportunity to remind everybody that about a mile and a half from the Bulb, there's the so-called the AstraZeneca site, which is a toxic dump where there's a project to build over 4,000 housing units with huge dangers for the environment. And there are a number of lawsuits going on. If you're interested in it, in the situation, there's a couple of websites, the Richmond Shoreline Alliance and others. But this could be a real showstopper for the Bay Trail. There's the site is right next to the water. So if there is a water level rise, which invariably there will be, there is a very big danger. And I wanted to make everybody aware of it. So the Bay Trail is beautiful, but this is a big threat.
Yeah, well, thanks for telling us about that. I'll definitely look into that. And Richmond has some wonderful people advocating for public space. The group that comes most readily to mind is the Trails for Richmond Action. I think it's the Advisory or Action Committee. Track. And I definitely want to know what their thoughts are going to be on that. So thanks, Jaime, for telling us about that.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Paco, go ahead.
Oh, you know what? I'm gonna undergo my flu vaccine.
Flu vaccine. Good for you. That's vaccines we're pro-vaccine on Bay Trail Confidential. Especially if you're going to go to some of these events that are fantastic events, it's very good to have full immunity.
And then blood testing after the flu vaccine. Blood test.
So say that again, Paco?
The next step. It's a blood test. That's the next step after the flu vaccine.
Great. Other thoughts? Other questions?
I can't wait to see Richie on Friday.
Richie Unterberger, my good friend who does a lot of Zoom programs on rock music history. John was mentioning that some of the jazz musicians have played with members of the Grateful Dead. And that kind of, my ears perked up when I heard that because I enjoy the Grateful Dead. So yeah, and I believe Richie will be talking about Latino rockers, including Santana and others, on his show Friday. If you get my email will have a link to how to get on Richie's show Friday evening at I think 6 p.m. Richie,
I'm sure Nikki's gonna be joining Rodney.
I'm sure she will. Yeah, Richie was actually on the program earlier, but isn't any longer. So thanks for that, Paco. Other thoughts? I just want to say again, John, Robin, thank you for being special guests on Bay Trail Confidential. You guys brought really terrific perspectives on how the Albany Bulb gets used. And I think the big takeaway for folks is to get out there, check out the art scene, and if you can, be there for some of these music events because they're going to be really, those are going to be special. And if there's no other comments or questions, I guess I'll go ahead and call this a wrap. Thanks, everybody. Get out there on the trail, root for those Bay Trail San Francisco Giants, and we'll see you on the second Wednesday of November. Okay, so thank you guys very much.
Yes, Rodney. I'll see you
Thanks.
then.
Ciao.
I'll see you on Friday, Rodney.
I'll see you
Happy
soon,
trails.
Paco. Happy trails.